Welcome back to our channel. On today's video, we're going to be driving through the triangle of Lehigh Acres at night. This is the worst part of Lehigh Acres with some of the worst crime and just crappy place to live. Most of this area is growing. There's actually a lot of new construction, as you're going to see in the video, but there's also a lot of duplexes, which means that there's not a lot of home ownership. You have a lot of people here who are simply renting. And the reason that I decided to go in here at night is that you'll be able to see how many people actually live in these houses. 99% of the people that live here are hardworking people. It's the 1% that stays behind and causes trouble. For the most part, in the daytime, there's nobody in Lehigh Acres. It's a complete ghost town. But if you drive through at night, you'll notice that some of these houses can have as much as 7 or 8 vehicles in the driveway, vehicles that are gone throughout the day, which means that there's just people that are working up to 2 or 3 jobs to pay the rent, living with roommates, a lot of people to a house. It's definitely not a glamorous place to live, yet because there's a lot of single family home construction, they're doing a sales pitch where they're making you think that Lehigh Acres is a great place to live. And I lived in Lehigh Acres for a year, and there were some definite inconveniences. Luckily, I lived in one of the better parts of Lehigh Acres in what's known as the Buckingham section, but this area known as the Triangle between 82, Lee, and Gunnery is definitely the place you don't want to end up in Lehigh Acres. There's a lot of construction going in, but don't let that fool you. It's growing because high rent prices, high demand for real estate, and just simply the working class of Southwest Florida has to live somewhere, and this is where they have to live. And again, the vast majority of people here are very hardworking people. It's that 1% that doesn't go to work that stays behind that causes a lot of the trouble. The problems that Lehigh Acres faces are diverse. For one, there's no industry in Lehigh Acres, and most of these people are commuting into Fort Myers or Naples to find work. The rents are ridiculously high, and the jobs simply do not pay enough. That's why you see so many people parking their vehicles out by the road, because they're having so many people living inside one house that there's not enough parking spaces. And if you pay attention, these driveways, there's definitely a lot of people living in every single household. A lot of them are duplexes. And when an area becomes nothing but renters, it usually becomes a very undesirable area. Lehigh Acres fools a lot of people because they see new home construction and they fail to notice the lack of infrastructure. Roads that are not paved. You'll see a few streets we drive through, there's a lot of potholes. They show you the new home construction and they show you the growth analytics, but what they forget to tell you is stuff like infrastructure. The roads are not being paved. There's not really any requirement for anybody who owns a lot to keep it up, which means there's a lot of overgrown lots. Road maintenance is one of the problems they're facing, is road maintenance in Lehigh Acres. There's just not enough infrastructure on that end of it. Luckily, they did finish Highway 82 and Lee Boulevard, so you do have the major roads being done. But once you get into the neighborhoods, the roads are in pretty bad condition for being Florida, and that's because Lehigh Acres is unincorporated. Nearly 200,000 people, or at least 170,000 people living in Lehigh Acres. It's not even a city, it's unincorporated, and it's believed that many efforts that they're making to turn Lehigh Acres into a city are going to be unfruitful because Lee County, Sheriff's Office, firefighters, and other county services, they're actually making money off Lehigh Acres. So not only is Lehigh Acres a poor area, but Lee County is sucking the life out of Lehigh Acres, and they're just looking at it as an area they can tax. And it's believed that there may be even some kickback schemes where, they got it all set up. They're all making money from ensuring that Lehigh Acres becomes nothing more than an unincorporated area for a very long time. If Lehigh Acres were to become a city, then that money grab of Lee County officials would come to an end. And that's not a myth. I lived in the Buckingham section where all the police officers and county officials live, and this has been confirmed to me by several people explaining exactly why Lehigh Acres will never become a city. The reason it's never going to become a city is because it's a money grab. They're all making a lot of money in Lee County If Lehigh Acres were to become a city, their money grab would be over. Then Lehigh Acres is currently about 70% Hispanic, despite the white population being between 10 to 15% of the total population. The people postulating themselves for, the city becoming a city, those people are all 100% white. They're not including the black or the Hispanic community. So, it's still going to be another power grab or money grab for them. So basically, the reason Lehigh Acres is unincorporated, and it's going to continue to be unincorporated, is because nobody cares about Lehigh Acres being a city. Well, the people that live there want to make it a city because they want their lives to be better. But the people in power are only looking out for themselves. I've talked to a few people who want to turn Lehigh Acres into a city, and I asked them, who are your people you're working with, and it's 100% white. I'm like, well, it's 80% Hispanic out there, maybe 90% minorities when you include the black population. White population is about 10% of the population out there, so here you have, 10, 15 people, and they're all white. That doesn't really represent the community, but it's just a never-ending power grab or money grab for people that's going to ensure that Lehigh Acres is never going to be incorporated because nobody cares about the actual city of Lehigh. The only thing they care about is their own personal political aspirations or their own monetary aspirations that can come from that political situation. So Lehigh Acres continues to be unincorporated, and if you move here, you're going to have to deal with no sewage. There's a few parts of the older city that have sewage, but for the most part, everybody here is on a septic tank. And there's a few complications with septic tank. You would rather be on city sewage. Now, I've had people try to argue that having a septic tank is better. Please shut your mouth. You live in a swamp, and on top of that, you're keeping your raw sewage above the ground level of the groundwater. And then everybody's on well water, which means that the well you're using to bathe is coming from underneath your septic tank. So you have everybody on septic tanks, everybody on well water. And the reason this situation exists is because there's no infrastructure. Now, you'll have people that are trying to tell you that they want a well and they want a septic tank, and those people are complete morons. Or they're simply in denial about their situation. The vast majority of us understand that if you're going to have a city of 200,000 people, you need to have a waste treatment facility, you need to have sewage lines, and you need to have city water. But apparently in Florida, a city of 200,000 people has none of that. Oh, and there's also no internet connection that's worth a crap. While living in Lehigh Acres, I suffered greatly economically because I'm a YouTuber, and there's not really any good internet. Could there be a section of Lehigh that has better internet? Sure, there might be one section that has good internet, but the vast majority of Lehigh Acres, there's no internet as well. The lack of infrastructure and investment in this community is absolutely staggering. It's really astonishing that a place with nearly 200,000 people has no internet access that's worth a crap, no city sewage, no city water, because simply it's the Hispanic area of Lee County of Southwest Florida. This is where they put all the working class. That's why you see all these work vans everywhere, because this is the working class people. And that's also why they're growing a lot too. People in the deep south talk about redlining, like in the city of Birmingham. You want to talk about redlining, what's going on in Lehigh Acres, where absolutely no investment has gone into this area simply because it's becoming majority Hispanic, and the fact that the people that are looking or interested in politics in this area are only doing it for their own benefit, not for the benefit of the people. So Lehigh Acres is a very unpromising place. I lived there for a year. I think the people deserve access to city water. They deserve access to city sewage. They need to have better roads. They need to have better services, better investment. But it's not just on a city and county level. It's also on a business level. Companies do not want to invest in an area that's 80% minorities. And they can justify that by simply saying, oh, it's a low-income area, so we can't really invest here. But there's a lot of low-income places in Indiana that have everything in a small town of 5,000 people. I've literally been to towns of 9,000 people that have more businesses than Lehigh Acres of 200,000. So the challenges that this place is facing are really just massive. And then you have the fact that, well, most of these people are going to have a mortgage. Real estate prices in Southwest Florida are insane. So not only are these people not making a lot of money, they're being deprived from basic utilities basic investments that most communities their size would have. But on top of all that, they're paying a premium for the real estate. And that is what a lot of people that move to Lehigh Acres don't understand, that it's a place that's almost rigged up for failure. I mean, I came to Lehigh Acres with a lot of money and I lost a lot of it. My business failed, the phone didn't ring, we didn't have internet access, utilities were a nightmare, infrastructure was a nightmare. The entire community is low income, and not only are they low income, but more than that, they're just cash strapped. It's not that they don't make a lot of money, everybody works hard. It's that the rent, cost of living, and cost of commute is so massive that it leaves the people very little disposable income, where you might go to a place like Alabama, Mississippi, or Louisiana, where people have lower incomes, but they have more disposable income because their lives are more affordable in general. And that's definitely not the case in Lehigh Acres. And by the time they do decide to bring in the infrastructure, then the people are going to have their properties assessed. It means that property taxes are going to go up exponentially, as if it wasn't expensive enough already. Then the fact that it's in South Florida where you have constant hurricanes. But wait, there's more. If you watch the news, you'll notice that a lot of the shootings and all bad things along the line of crime that are happening in Southwest Florida are actually taking place in Lehigh Acres. And again, when you look at Lehigh Acres, new construction, you may not think it's a high crime rate area. You're driving around here at night and you don't see anybody out on the streets. It doesn't look like a high crime rate area. But if you've lived there for a year like I have, it's definitely above the national average. And it really depends on what part of Lehigh Acres you live. If you live in a place like, Buckingham or far in the east side, crime may not really be a concern. But if you end up here in the Triangle, the area we're driving through now, in the areas adjacent to the Triangle, let me tell you, home invasion robberies are common, auto break-ins are common, vehicle theft is common, and of course, all the other criminal activities that come along with living in a poor neighborhood. But the most shocking aspect of Lehigh Acres is the home invasion robberies, where you go to work, you come back from work, in the daytime they break into your house and take all your crap. Vehicle theft has become a huge problem as well. ATVs, trailers, anything of that nature, Lehigh Acres has a lot of potential to get stolen. You also have a lot of felony dumping. That's where people will just unload a box truck of garbage somewhere, or even a lot of abandoned boats. So that's called felony dumping in Florida. Homelessness really isn't a problem. In some of the most remote parts of Lehigh Acres, you do find, I ran into a few homeless camps deep in the woods. People that were living kind of like around Greenbrier, like the most remote parts of Lehigh Acres. I did run into people living in the woods, and they were absolutely just kind of primitive people, just very isolated from society in some of the most remote parts of Lehigh Acres. So if you're buying a house in one of the most remote parts, like Greenbrier, or just near a lot of adjacent empty lots, it wouldn't hurt to just take a look through the area, make sure you don't have homeless people living in the woods. They're going to be very well hidden. Homelessness and addiction isn't a huge problem in Lehigh Acres like in other parts of Southwest Florida. Especially if you end up in a Hispanic area, you're not going to have that much of a problem. But there's a few areas like Alva, Olga, Buckingham section, and out east that are predominantly the white areas of Lehigh that are left. And those areas, you will find a lot more activity with use of illegal substances. You don't really have that problem in the Hispanic areas. But anyways, that's Lehigh Acres for you. And if you're moving here, just know that there's good parts and there's bad parts. But I would definitely stay clear of the area known as the Triangle. Even Sunshine and Alabama are starting to get pretty bad. Now, I've lived in Kentucky, I've lived in Alabama, I've lived in Fort Myers, Lehigh, Naples, now I live in Bradenton, whatever. Out of all the places that I have lived here in the United States, I can definitely say that Lehigh Acres is the most economically deprived place that I've lived. It's not that the people are violent, it's not that the place is horrible, it's not. I actually enjoyed living in Lehigh Acres a lot. I made some great memories driving around in the ATVs. If you're into ATVing, it's incredible. I mean, you can literally drive most of Lehigh Acres that's rural. Like here off of Lee Boulevard, you're probably not going to want to drive an ATV through here. But not that I didn't do it, but you want to stay far away from the more heavily, densely populated areas. If you end up in a more isolated part of Lehigh, like far east or far north, you can definitely drive your ATV without a problem. I did it for about over a year, and at no point did I ever have any trouble with law enforcement bothering me. It is a little dangerous. You have to make sure you don't get hurt. A lot of people get hurt on ATVs, especially off of Sunshine and North End. There's just been tragic accident after tragic accident. So, you have to be careful on the ATV. Always make sure you're doing it sober. So, yeah, I made some great memories in Lehigh Acres. I mean, some of the best memories of my life, spending an entire day on the ATV. If I got a day where I just wanted to stay home and just spend the whole entire day driving an ATV through Lehigh Acres in my little Honda 250, it was a blast. It really was. Nobody bothered me. You're always alert, because you're in remote places, but I never had a problem. I ran into large groups of ATVers way in the boondocks and never really had a problem. Could have been a problem, never was. I remember one time I got stuck off a Greenbrier, and there was these Puerto Ricans that had big giant side-by-sides, and they pulled me out of the mud. I mean, it was a vulnerable position for me, and they came and helped me, so it's all good. The same thing with the rednecks. A few times I got stuck, and the rednecks helped me. It's all good out there. Like, I made some great memories, but I recognize that the lack of infrastructure, investment, and just general care for the well-being of this community simply doesn't exist, and that in itself makes living in Lehigh Acres a very difficult place. If they were to invest, fix the roads, bring in utilities, bring in more investment, it would be a great place to live. But if they continue just using Lehigh Acres as a way for people to line their pockets, it's basically the problem they have. It's going to continue to be a crap hole. For the most part, it's people in emergency services and in the county positions that have it rigged up, good old boy system. They got it all rigged up, and they are lining their pockets in the process. So as long as that system is in place, Lehigh Acres will never be more than what it is. And possibly the fact that it's the largest Hispanic community down there, and they just don't want to invest resources into Hispanic communities like they would in the other areas. Just look at the demographic change between Lehigh and Northport. Lehigh was a much more promising place, and Northport is far ahead of the race simply because the goal, the long-term plan there is better. And even though it's even more geographically restricted than Lehigh Acres, Northport is on the rise. Port Charlotte, places that, you'd think Lehigh Acres would be further ahead of them right now, and it's not. So don't let all the new home construction fool you. There's a lot still missing in Lehigh Acres. In fact, the more people that end up there in a deprived economical situation, the more difficult life is going to get for a lot of people there, because, again, you have a lot of people, but what are those people going to do? There's no parks, very few parks, very few entertainment options, and definitely very few employment options. Again, the word is economically deprived. And not just economically, there's just not a lot to do. It's a great place to retire if you're okay. If you're not working, you're not part of the economical flow, you just want to have an affordable house in Southwest Florida, it may be a great place for you then. It's all affordable real estate, so most of the construction's gone into the Triangle because of the infrastructure. The two highway exits on 75 are closer, and most people that are renting, commuting, they just want to be as close to the interstate as possible. They don't want to be way out in East Lehigh. You'll find more retired people in the north and the east, homeowners, people that are paid off and stuff like that are going to be in those areas. But the Triangle is simply the place to keep packing Southwest Florida's working class people, very hard working people. Because if you're in this neighborhood in the daytime, it's a complete ghost town. When you go in there at night, like we are now, you understand the real lives that these people are living, which is basically some of them working 2 and 3 jobs, gone all day, only home to sleep. And this is like that even on the weekends. It's a very hard-working community, and I think they deserve a lot better than what they're getting. And now houses in Lehigh are pushing above $300,000. I mean, when they were $150,000, it didn't make sense. And in a matter of 3 to 4 years, now the houses are $300,000, $350,000. I wouldn't want to end up there unless I was a paid-off homeowner. I wouldn't want to end up there with a mortgage on a $300,000 house in a place with no infrastructure, no access to good employment. What happens if you get sick? That's why you have so many foreclosures. You have so many people getting roommates and stuff like that. It definitely isn't a life that I would want to live. So if you're just moving to Southwest Florida and end up in Lehigh Acres, let me tell you, it is not quite as frustrating as like a Newark, New Jersey commute, but during the wintertime, that drive on 75 can get very annoying and people very irritable with reason. It's a miserable life for the most part, unless you're me on an ATV and you're a YouTuber. That changes the whole thing. So if you're retired, it's not the worst place in the world. And the crime, again, crime is, it's not the worst. It's above the national average, but not in a horrible way. You have to be aware of your property. That's about it. But it's not a dangerous, scary place. I wouldn't describe it that way. Now, you end up here in the Triangle, and that's a different story because their crime is more prevalent. And the schools in Lee County are horrible if you have kids. That's definitely something you can just write Lee County schools and Google it. And when I lived in Lehigh, just about every week, there was a news story out of the schools in Lehigh. If it wasn't one, it was the other. Scary stuff. Horrible place. Schools are definitely bad to where most families that have kids in Lehigh, if they're able to, are going to try to get them into schools that are right outside of Lehigh, like Riverdale. Just push them into another school district if they can, because the ones here are really bad. All right, guys, that is your tour of Lehigh Acres and what I think about Lehigh Acres moving into 2024. I hope you guys liked the video. Great memories for me, but definitely hard economical times.